Good morning. I'm Ben Ayers. I'm Dean of the Terry College of Business. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Terry Third Thursday and to our Terry Exec Ed Center. This is the home of our Executive MBA, our Professional MBA, and Online MBA, as well as our non-degree exec programs we do in our facilities on the 3 floors we have here. Custom programs for leading clients. I think Coca-Cola is in this week, as well as open enrollment programs. I want to thank our alumni board for organizing today's event and this entire series. They do so much for the Terry College. So please join me in a round of applause for our alumni board. We also greatly appreciate corporate support with this. Synovus has been a long-term partner of ours for this series. And then also our media sponsor, WABE, Atlanta Public Broadcasting. So please join me in thanking them as well. Happy first day of spring. I think as around 1 o'clock this morning, spring has sprung. And so, and happy first day of March Madness and go Dogs. I expect everybody to be working diligently this afternoon around 4:30. But hopefully we'll get a good outcome. We've got obviously a great speaker today and great speakers coming up in April. On April 17th, we'll have Elizabeth Newton, founder and designer of E. Newton Design. And then also Cal Evans will be here on May 15th. Cal is the Senior Director of Market Intelligence and Analytics for Synovus. I've had the opportunity to hear Cal present a number of times, be very insightful, and also has good humor as well. We will not be meeting in June and July, but we will return back in August. And in August, we'll have Neil Pruitt, who's the CEO of Pruitt Healthcare. So just like today, the remaining times for this spring and summer, we'll have great speakers. I now would like to ask Mitch Shepard to come up to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Dean Ayers. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see a full house this morning. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker and my friend Griff Lynch. Griff is the president and CEO of the Georgia Ports Authority, which operates the Port of Savannah, the Port of Brunswick, and the Bainbridge Port Terminal. He oversees the nation's third busiest container port in Savannah and the second busiest auto port in Brunswick, both key economic drivers for the southeastern United States. The Port Authority is also developing the Blue Ridge Connector Terminal in Gainesville, linking Northeast Georgia to Savannah via rail. Griff has led the Georgia Ports Authority since 2010 and has over 35 years experience in operational and commercial shipping experience. One thing that Griff did not mention in his bio that I want to highlight real quick, in 2022, Griff was named Georgia Trend's Georgian of the Year. And if you think back to 2021, 2022, as you all remember, we were dealing with COVID and what that brought to our lives and how it turned our lives upside down. But if you were in the shipping industry, logistics business, supply chain, I cannot tell you how your world was turned upside down. And it really was the perfect storm. You had money was flowing, obviously. You had low interest rates. You had people sitting at home just buying. And at the same time, there were labor shortages around the world. Factories were shut down. And during this time, the port's volume grew over 20%. So they went from doing around, I think, 4.2 million TEUs to over 5 million TEUs in annual increase. So just imagine running your business and someone, tells you we're gonna crank it up 20%, and oh, by the way, you don't get any more employees or resources or investment, and that's what Griff and his team were dealt back during that time. In the port business, to handle additional volume like that, you need berths to handle the vessels. You need ship-to-shore cranes. You need RTGs. You need container storage. You need trucks. You need chassis. You need operators. You need all of that, and Griff was given none of that, and yet asked to do, or the port was asked to do 20% more volume. And I can say, because I'm in the business and I see it every day, Griff and his team outperformed, the Savannah port outperformed every port across the country. And to me, they really solidified themselves as the best and most efficient port in the U.S. during that time. You couple that with the fact that the state of Georgia is continually named, the best state to do business. You also throw in Dean Ayers and his crew continuing to turn out great young talent into the labor force, and you see why so many companies are moving to Georgia and want to be a part of Georgia. So, Griff, on behalf of everyone here, on behalf of everyone in the state of Georgia, I want to thank you for what you've done to bring jobs, industry to the state of Georgia. We appreciate you being here this morning. I know you have a very busy schedule. So without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Griff Lynch.
That was very kind. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mitch. I wasn't here long, and I met Mitch 14 years, 15 years ago, and we had a great conversation. And I got to tell you, Howard Shepherd is a great company that we work with. Thank you for all that you do for the ports. And also just want to recognize Keith Mason. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, Keith and his team, many years ago, a quarter of a century ago, brought that to the ports that we still use today. Very quick story, bring you inside our boardroom. I wasn't here long also when I was at a board meeting and I was talking to one of our board members and I said, we have this great project. We're going to build this really neat thing, but we can't tell anybody. He said, Griff, great, but we got to call it Project Bulldog. I said, fine, yeah, no problem, Project Bulldog. So we go to our board meeting and I said, okay, guys, we have this neat project. And I said, the name of the project's Project Bulldog. And the other half of the table said, ho, time out. Bunch of yellow jackets were in the room. We had half UGA. I learned very quickly about that little rivalry there. So we had to change the name. We found a new name for the project. I understand I have about 25 minutes to speak, and then I'm going to open the floor for questions. So I'm going to take our state of the port and condense it. So I'm going to move fairly quickly, but bear with me if it's too fast. I know you guys are UGA folks and you like things moving fast. So we're going to start with a great video to kick off the day and get you all fired up. All right. Okay, so there are some long-term trends that will continue to drive success to the ports and to the Southeast. Those three things that we're banking on, people from New York and New Jersey moving here and some other places, but we've got the fastest growing states in our service area. Manufacturing shift, there's a lot of business. We know that. Georgia's been named top place in which to do business, but you can see throughout the Southeast, just a sampling of some of our major customers. Obviously, we go beyond this, but we are the fastest growing manufacturing region as well. And then finally, this is really fascinating. What you see here is the green arrow means this is sourcing. So where is the cargo coming from that is coming to Savannah? And where is it declining? By far, China is our largest partner. If you go back a few years ago, they were more than 40% of all the imports coming to Georgia. Now that number is less than 40 and declining because of obvious reasons. And the areas that are growing, you see here, the fastest growing area is actually Vietnam and Thailand. But we see India really exploding in the coming years because of the population base and the workforce, developing workforce that they have. That's really important for us because India is much closer to the East Coast than the West Coast of the United States. And so as sourcing changes to India, the East Coast is going to benefit greatly, and Savannah will be part of that success. Now, I have two lines here because, as most of you know, the Suez Canal is not really being utilized today because of a small Houthi problem that hopefully will be fixed in the coming years. So most of the ships that come to Savannah are going around the Cape of Africa. And so that means it takes longer to get to the East Coast. But even with that extra 10 days, It's still faster to the East Coast versus the West Coast. This is something that's really important. But when it does go the Suez route, that's going to be a 10-day advantage over the West Coast. That's a big deal. That will drive business to us. Regardless of where the business moves to and sourcing moves, the United Nations on Conference and Trade rank 1,000 ports around the world every year. And amazingly, Savannah is the #2 port in the United States. The #1 port in the world would be places like Shanghai and Ningbo in China. So those are the top, Busan in Korea. But for the U.S., #1 is New York, New Jersey. And what this means is not connectivity into inland destinations in the U.S. It's connectivity across the world, every trade lane, South America, Indian subcontinent, Asia, Europe. And so because of the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal, and because of our general location, it's great. In addition to that, we have incredible connectivity into the U.S., so that's a real benefit for us. So all those things I just talked about are going to be key factors in our long-term growth. Short-term trends, you may have heard, we did have a labor kind of contract renewal this year. It came up in October. There was a 3-day strike up and down the East Coast. That is well behind us now. A new contract was signed just a few weeks ago, and we're using that today. So that's great. That's a 6-year contract, so labor piece for the coming 6 years, which is very, very important. The problem was that customers, while that contract was being negotiated, our customers diverted cargo to the West Coast. So we did take a hit there. And I say diverted cargo, it means all the East Coast and Gulf cargo, just in case anything bad happened. Let's make sure we avoid any risk, and we'll go through some other trade lanes. At the same time that they were diverting cargo, there are other customers that are advancing cargo to avoid tariffs. So it's really a unique situation that we're into now. And so what it translated into numbers is that LA Long Beach on a larger base grew by almost 20% last year, versus all the East Coast ports and Gulf ports on average were 9.3. So interesting. Just keep that number in mind, and we'll take a look at our volumes and what happened at the Georgia ports. So the Georgia ports is really based on 2 pillars. We have ro-ro cargo, which is roll on, roll off. It's cars and heavy machinery. There are ships that they just drive the car right on. They look like shoeboxes. They're big, and you drive the cars and the heavy machinery right on or off them. The Georgia ports this year grew by 18% for ro-ro cargo, and this is all down in Brunswick. We actually have the largest ro-ro terminal in the country in space. We were second to Baltimore, but they did have a bridge incident this year. And based on that, we became the #1 ro-ro port. Not because of Baltimore. We didn't really receive a lot of freight from Baltimore, but we've invested heavily in this area and grown tremendously, as you can see. So the Georgia ports today is the #1 ro-ro port. What will be interesting for 2025 is, do we maintain that position as now Baltimore's reopened and we're going one-on-one? I think we will, because if you look at our trend, we're outpacing them on the growth side. Over the 10-year, moderate growth, I'd say 31%. But the key here is that we've now built out a significant amount of capacity, and we have a lot of consolidation coming to Georgia for all the reasons that I cited. Okay, on the rail side, this is shifting back to Savannah. How much cargo do we handle via rail? And this is to go on or off the vessels. So we handled almost 600,000 containers, 579, up 5.8%. Strong growth, not phenomenal, but it was a record year for us. And we see tremendous growth here, and I'll talk more about rail in just a little bit. 71% over the 10 years. Now, on the vessel side and container growth, all of the containers that I talk about come to or leave the terminal by ship. 80% of those depart and arrive via truck, and then 20% are rail. So truck has always been a very strong market for us. So the vessel volume, I heard Mitch mention TEU. That's 20-foot equivalent units, so just a standard metric for our industry. Up 12.5%. So think about the average East Coast and Gulf was 9.3. We were 12.5. So this is amazing, considering we're in an environment where cargo is being diverted away from us. We still grew by double digits. A lot of the folks down at Savannah did not believe us when they said, Griff, there's no way they're diverting cargo away. I said, they are, believe me. Our customers were doing it. So when you look at us versus all the other East Coast and Gulf, we had a great year in relation to them, and we were 12.5%. versus all the others, as you can see. So the fastest growing U.S. East Coast port. We want to be the fastest growing, period. But since LA Long Beach had such a great year, we took them off the slide. It would mess everything up. So the one thing I want to point out here is that those shifts that I talked about, and then in the connectivity. What's fascinating about this is, as a percentage, it would be easier for Charleston's half the size of us. So from a percentage basis, it should be easier for them to beat us. But this is really telling, because what you see here is the top 2 connected ports are growing the fastest. And what that, I think over the long haul, that trend is going to continue, because the ocean carriers and the shippers want to consolidate where they move their freight. It's easier and cheaper for them to do that into major gateways. And so let's hope that trend does continue. And that's been the story for many, many years now. So our overall volume, as you can see, 5.6 million TEUs. So we're climbing back into that COVID territory, as Mitch had mentioned. I have other slides. I didn't use it here, where I just take out the 21 through 23, because those are the COVID years. And again, this is my presentation. I can eliminate those, but I didn't do that here, because those are really, truly anomaly years. What's great about what we see here is that we're climbing back into that territory through true organic growth. Current capacity. So Mitch actually referenced this. The bars are the throughput, the actual business that we handle, and the green line is the capacity that we have. And the truth of the matter is, the green line probably ran through the bar in 2022, and that's when our service really suffered. And that happened at every port across the nation, because we grew so fast. And what we're trying to do is have that green line be 20% higher than the actual throughput, so that we can absorb capacity. That's different than what private terminal operators do, or global companies, or private equity. They're going to sweat the asset more than we would. We want to absorb the business seamlessly, so we can continue to grow and create jobs for Georgia. And so our question, our challenge was, how can we build enough capacity to grow properly? If we grow at the same rate that we've been growing, about 5+%, 2030, we have 7.5 million TEUs. By 2035, 9 million TEUs. So it's not just about building things, as we tell people. We're simulating what to do. We're talking to our customers. Where do you think we're going to grow? What do you need? What kind of services? And so at the end of the day, we put it into 5 buckets, and these are the investments we're making. And I'm going to walk through each one of these right now: channels, yard, gate, rail, and partnerships. So the first thing is on the channels. If we're challenged in one area right now, it's going to be on the vessel side. We have the Savannah River that we deal with. It's a river port. There's a lot of advantages to that, but there are some challenges that go with it. And here's one of them. So Garden City is the main container facility. This green dot is a ship that is leaving Garden City and going outbound and sailing to some other foreign port. The next green dot comes in, and that's the next ship, and there's a clock there. What we want to have in a perfect world is the green dots pass each other, and there's no time between the time the vessel departed and when the vessel arrived. But you can see here, when a big ship departs, these ships are getting bigger and bigger. When one departs our terminal, it takes between 12 and 15 hours to turn the berth over. So there's a lot of idle time, lost productivity. So our question is, how can we improve that? So for the long haul, what we will do is we will create passing zones. We have to work with our federal partners to do this. It's a massive project. It'll take a number of years, probably 8 to 10 years to make this happen, and we'll deepen the river as well. And this is just a proposal that we have, and there's more that we can do. But it makes sense, it will work, and it will happen someday, probably in the early 2030s. But in the meantime, we need a solution today, because we do have vessels at anchor that are waiting, and we need to make sure we can process those vessels quickly. So we are going to go with something we call a lay berth. If you recall, there was Garden City, and right next to it is Ocean Terminal. It's another asset we have where we're spending about $1.6 billion on it right now. So we're going to use Ocean Terminal as a parking spot or a holding area. So what you see here is an inbound vessel could come all the way up to Ocean Terminal and be docked while an outbound vessel passes by. And so what that means, as soon as that outbound vessel passes Ocean Terminal, the inbound vessel can then proceed to the berth. So instead of 12 hours to turn a ship, now we're talking about 3 hours. It won't happen as quickly as that. These ships are big and it takes time to move them, but it will drastically improve our service. And so we have one lay berth that's available starting now, and a second berth that will be coming available next year as we rebuild Ocean Terminal. So that was something we announced at the State of Port. This is Ocean Terminal. I mentioned $1.6 billion. It's an old facility. It handled ro-ro and it handled a small amount of containers. So we're updating that, rebuilding a berth, surcharging the yard so it can store containers, and it's a massive project, and that will come online in 2027. We've taken delivery of 8 ship-to-shore cranes over the last few years, really moving well. And beyond that, across the Ocean Terminal is Hutchinson Island. If you've been in Savannah and you go over the Talmadge Bridge and you look to your left, that's Hutchinson Island, 400 acres that the Georgia Ports owns. We're permitting this land now. We'll build that out as well. That will be multiple billions of dollars to build, so it's a big project. And as I talk about these projects that I'm going to share with you now, and the billions that we're spending in Ocean Terminal, this is GPA cash flow. This is not tax dollars. So it's either our own cash flow, it's through bonds that we're issuing that we are on the hook to pay for. So a lot of people say, well, how are you spending my money? No, this is the GPA money. So that's one thing that differentiates the Georgia ports from basically every other port in the nation. We are self-sustaining completely. So Savannah berths, ship berths are key. I talked about that. We have 7 big ship berths now, 3 at Ocean Terminal, small ships. So with the project I just shared with you, we'll go to 2 big ships. This is the key. When I came into the industry 38 years ago, the largest ship on the water was about 3,000 TEUs, 4,000 TEUs, in that range. Today, the largest ship is over 24,000 TEUs. And in Savannah, we handle 16,000 TEUs, which is amazing. One quick note, when we did the harbor deepening, they started that in about the year 2000. That was built for an 8,000 TEU ship. And the team, before I got here, was trying to convince the Army Corps, no, the ships are going to get bigger. No, they're only going to be 8,000. So by the time the ship project, the expansion project was completed in 2020, it was already obsolete because we had ships that were much larger. So then next, with the Savannah Container Terminal, 3 more big ships, 100% increase. That's not happening anywhere else in the country. That kind of expansion on the berth, you will not find that. Yard, I'll just move this through quickly. We can't just expand in one area. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with whack-a-mole. You can have too much ship capacity, too much yard. So we've got to increase the storage capacity, and that's what we're doing through the projects that we have. And then finally, I know Mitch is very familiar with this. One of the areas that really, really messes up the trucking companies that we deal with, that's our front-end customer. We want them to come to the terminal, go through the facility as quickly as possible so that they can do more turns. We want to build enough gates so they're not queuing up. Think about a toll booth. Think about going through a drive-through. Go to Chick-fil-A. How can Chick-fil-A, it's the same thing. How can we process quicker? 53 lanes is what we have today for trucks. We're expanding here, 18 more lanes will open this summer that we're building right now. Ocean Terminal will bring in another 10 after that. Savannah Container Terminal, when it opens, 19, when you total them all up, a massive increase of 100 truck lanes, right? And 72%. These are all things that are happening as we speak. The projects I'm sharing with you total $4.2 billion of investments over the next 10 years to keep pace with this growth. And on the rail side, we've invested heavily in the rail. And I'll just run this video for you. reason I showed you that video is because what we're doing at the Georgia ports is connecting cargo from the ship to the rail in 24 hours. So it discharges and is on the ship, on the rail, and going in 24 hours. Why is that important? The same process in LA Long Beach is taking 2 to 3 weeks. So that's why customers move cargo from China all the way through the Panama Canal to Savannah. Like, why would they do that? It takes 2 weeks longer on a ship. That's why, because they don't have the fluidity that we have, and that's one of our strengths. We want to keep that. And the reason we have that is we've invested heavily in our rail capacity. We can handle, if you haven't been to the ports, this is something we've done over the last 7, 8 years. We've built a massive rail facility, the Mason Mega Rail. And when Keith Mason's not in the room, I call it the Mega Rail, but he's here, so I'm calling it the Mason Mega Rail. He knows this. So 10,000-foot trains we can handle simultaneously. We've got to continue to grow that. The rail is what allows us to have the reach into the U.S. Where you saw Dallas, not only Atlanta, Memphis. We actually have freight now, because of those delays that I just shared with you. We have freight that's coming all the way through the Panama Canal or the Suez and going back to Kansas City, halfway across the country. It's amazing the reach that we have. Ocean Terminal adds some, Savannah Container Terminal, and then ultimately we'll have 15, we can have the capacity for 15 10,000-foot trains. That's a lot of trains. The other thing we're doing in rail, to provide our customers with alternatives is providing inland nodes that connect to Georgia and other places via rail. So the Appalachia Regional Port was a great project we built about 7, 8 years ago. Highly successful in Murray County, created a lot of economic development up there. Today, we're building the Blue Ridge Connector that Mitch mentioned. I'm going to skip over the Carolina Connector just for time. This is a massive project, $150 million in Gainesville, in an area that's a fast-growing area of the state. And so our customers have been asking for this. We're building it now. Kubota Manufacturing is directly adjacent to this. So that's like an anchor tenant for us. But this will grow, and this will open in 2026. Really excited about that. Everything we do has sustainability in mind. One of the grants, now this would be an area where we are receiving federal grants to help us, providing a Clean Ports grant, providing shore power to the ships. So what that means is instead of a ship coming in and running its own plant and spewing out CO2 emissions and so forth, we'll shut them down and we'll provide power to the vessel, and they can just plug in. So it's much cleaner burning, and it'll eliminate 15,000 of CO2 emissions a year. We're doing a lot of stuff across the terminals. I don't have time to go through it all today, but it is very beneficial to the port. And the other thing is we're introducing electric trucks on the facility. So we're testing those now. These are the community leaders in near port communities in Savannah, and our mayor and county chairman who came out to celebrate the Clean Ports grant. Partnerships. We don't do it alone. We need help. We realize that, and the Georgia Department of Transportation is one of those key partners for us. The Talmadge Bridge is one area where we need help. The bridge that we have today is not big enough to support the future vessels that want to come to Savannah. We have customers right now saying, hey, we know you handle 16,000 TEU ships. We need you to handle 20,000. But we can't come to you because the bridge is too low, which is amazing, because if you drive over the bridge, you'd think, how could a ship not fit below this thing, right? So what's going to happen now, wait for it here. There we go. The bridge is going to get raised, but it's not going to be that simple, unfortunately. We are working, this is the GDOT's project, and they're doing a great job. They actually have contract with a firm and a design firm. This will begin in earnest in 2026 and be completed by 2029. We're going to raise the bridge by 20 plus feet. And the thing that is determining the height of the bridge is the grade of this bridge today is 5.5%. The max grade permissible is 6%. So that 0.5% gets us 20 feet. And my wife said, Griff, I will never drive over that bridge if it does get raised 20 feet. But it's what we need. I'm really excited about this. To get this done in 3 years would be a big deal for us and for our future. Really needs to happen. There's other projects GDOT's doing. We know they're working all over the state, improving roads and things like that. I won't go through all these things. There's just not enough time. But from a standpoint of economic impact, that's one of our key missions going back to 1945. The Georgia Ports this month turns 80 years old. We have the Terry College School of Business, which, again, Keith Mason started 20 some odd years ago. Every other year, they're measuring our impact on the state. And thankfully, the jobs is something that we how many jobs do we touch throughout the state? Right now, it's about 600,000, and that number continues to grow. Essentially, for every 5 containers that we handle, we are adding a job. So this is one of those folks that we work with.
Spartina 449, being a local brand in an area that has so much tourism is a high level of responsibility because we really feel like we bring the Low Country to life for visitors that know nothing about us, and they fall in love with the Low Country and then bring it back to their home and wherever they live. Spartina 449 started on Defusky Island. Kay Stanley is our founder and CEO, and she came over from Kansas City and fell in love with the Low Country. She was inspired by the beauty of the area. We currently have 17 retail stores in 5 states, and we're adding 3 more retail locations this year for a total of 20. We're really excited to continue to expand our brick and mortar locations. Our business is made up of 95% women and then 87% women in our leadership roles as well, which is very special, and we're very, very proud of that fact. Being close to the Georgia ports is actually really important to our business. We receive so many more deliveries now than ever before, and it's really important that they come in on time and then we can get them to the stores and on our e-com site as quickly as possible. A huge part of our growth has been finding the right 3PL partner and having them in close proximity to the ports and to our office. Really, the synergy of us all working together has been a game changer. With Spartina 449 being a growing business, I think our relationship has really evolved and grown over the years. With many vendors or business partners, such as the Georgia ports, incoming volume is going to really continue to expand. We are sourcing product and factories from all over the world. We have relationships with people in the ports. Our 3PL has the same, and I think working together towards the same goal, which is profitable local businesses to keep the economy going.
We show that video because it's nice to connect containers, these steel boxes, with real people and real customers. And the funny thing about this is I was practicing my State of the Port weeks ago, and I was in my kitchen, and I played this video. And to be honest, I had never heard of Spartina 449. And I have 4 daughters, and they were like, "Dad, are you kidding me?" You know, so this is a great brand. So anyway, Chrissy did a great job there, and she joined us at the State of the Port. Really amazing. This is part of the key components of our growth. The state of Georgia doing a great job bringing business in, those economic development, agencies throughout the state, and Governor Kemp and his team, and the governors prior to him. 11 years in a row is amazing, just truly incredible. Savannah experience, our customers love to come to Savannah just beyond sending their containers there, and that's a big part of our success as well. And we have our very own Joe Marinelli from the Chamber of Commerce, who told a great kind of story about why Savannah is so important.
The Savannah Way is really one of a collaborative effort. This is a community that really works well together. We all see the direction that the community is going, the growth at the ports, the growth at the airports, the growth in manufacturing, the growth of tourism. We all see where we're headed, and it seems like we work collaboratively and very well together. Our job is to promote Savannah regionally, nationally, and globally to bring visitors to town. When I think about the differentiators between Savannah and other cities, it's the people. This is a very welcoming community to all. So much about the overall Savannah experience is about the unexpected. You expect a quaint, charming, beautiful little southern city. What you don't necessarily expect is the show that the ships are going up and down the river. You don't necessarily expect the high-end luxury hotels that we have. You don't necessarily expect the kinds of culinary experiences that we have. All of that combined really builds, and I think the port plays a key role in that.
And this really could be the Georgia experience, because what I personally witnessed, I was up here yesterday speaking to a Chamber of Commerce, and you go throughout the state, people appreciate the port, and we appreciate that, because in a lot of places, the port's not so welcome. But when you think about Spartina 449 and what it's doing for the state, there's thousands of companies like that and stories. And you think about the importance of Savannah. Our message is that all the communities are important to our ports. And these are not our port, they're your port. So we thank you for all that support. Finally, just wrapping up with community, that's really important for us to do the right thing and be part of our community. Number one, we're really proud of this. We actually hire high school graduates from regionally to join the ports, not for an internship or anything like that, full-time employees. We give them mentors, we help develop their soft skills, and these young people are now becoming crane operators, earning very good salaries, and other key jobs throughout the port, 20, 21 years old. This has been really a successful program. We currently have 43 full-time that were hired at a high school, and this year we'll be hiring 20 more. So this is a program that's working very well for us. And finally, the last story I just want to share with you is the Greens. We are helping provide workforce housing. The Georgia Ports is through a $6 million contribution. Let's hear from Mr. and Mrs. Green.
Being a first-time homeowner, the feeling of having something to call your own is a beautiful thing.
It's just lovely. I just love the house, period. Every time I walk in, I'm so happy that we as homeowners, because I never been a homeowner, we always rent.
So prior to this home, we was in a 2-bedroom house. It was just me and her. Then our daughter was out there on drugs real bad. We ended up getting the kids because they would have been going to the foster system, and we needed more room. The kids needed a better place to stay, and we needed some way that they could grow where we know they have a foundation for them. The challenges was supporting a growing family, from going from just 2 to 6 in a matter of minutes like that. So we looking at financial-wise, clothes, beds, groceries, so everything out of pocket. So it would have just been a financial situation because now we putting out more funds to support the family. We are in this home today because Georgia Ports Authority had funds that was available for the process of purchasing your home. And then when we got our realtor, she showed us just a couple of homes that she had available. And one of the homes was this brand new house that was built from the ground up. So my grandkids, they love the house, they love the space, they love being here.
When they first came here, they already cleaned it. They already cleaned the house.
They were like, Grandma, this is it right here.
That's it.
So it's really about making them happy, making them feel safe, and letting them have a safe place to grow up. For me, I feel like if it wasn't for the down payment program to make things better for our grandkids, we wouldn't be where we're here today. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. So we're gonna take care of the babies.
Yeah.
The future for the Green family is so big, so bright. I feel like the sky's the limit.
I just think that's a beautiful story. You know, The Greens are great people. They joined us at the State of the Port too. Just to be clear, what we've done at the Georgia Ports is we work with the city of Savannah. We contributed $6 million over an 8-year period so that we could provide help to get people started. It's a jump start. We're not buying a house for somebody. And you can hear Mr. Green is a very proud man, and they've got to pay that mortgage. But it helps us too, because we're creating homes, creating a community for folks that are working here or would like to work that may not be able to get the start on their own. So we're really excited about this. This is one story of several, and I think we're hoping that others in Savannah, other businesses will jump in and join into this because they're doing a great job with that. With that, that concludes my comments. I want to make sure I got it done on time. Christine said, if you don't, Griff, you'll never be invited back again. So, and you know, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to address those as I can. Yes, sir.
First of all, great presentation. Savannah office. It's nice to know what those things are now.
Yeah.
Now, what do you see as far in a macro environment with the tariffs and things like that? How do you see that affecting imports, exports, and then obviously that's how you guys make money. So
Yeah,
how are you guys going to pivot?
that is the question of the day for sure. It's a great question. On the tariffs, how do we see that? So I was with the CEO of a large railroad just 2 days ago, and I asked him the same question. I said, "What?" And I liked his response. He said, "Look, right now it is going to have an impact. We're going to see some downward pressure on our business, but." The way he put it was, this is a high stakes poker match right now, and there's a lot of jockeying and posturing. And over the long haul, my hope is that these things get worked out. If we were to continue in the way that we are right now, we're going to see volumes decline, in the short term, for sure. I just think that will happen. We're seeing some slowdown. As we can look out about 7, 8 weeks to see what's on the water and what's coming to us, and we are seeing an impact on our business right now. Can't say it's only that, but I mentioned, I think, at the beginning of the presentation that customers have advanced their cargo to avoid tariffs to the extent we can. And I will share with you that the ship-to-shore cranes, those big cranes you see on the dock, a few years ago, they were $14 million, then $17 million, then $18 million. Today, with the tariffs, if we wanted to buy a crane, it's $24 million a crane. So it's a lot of money, and that's going to slow our development down as well.
Mr. Lynch, good morning. Thank you for this presentation. Whoever did your media, they may deserve a raise.
I whipped
there
that up
too.
myself. I did that.
Yeah, very well done. My name is Michael Gargiulo. I'm a business owner, and I also serve as the chief of staff to Senator Colton Moore up in the Northwest. And one thing that we're interested in is the aspect of a free trade zone, which I think we have a foreign trade zone at the port.
Yes, we do.
But there are other free trade zones around the world and the canal corridors and such that kind of really attract international business. And with the tariff issues kind of happening, how do you see the trade zones?
No, it's really
Back to
great.
the
That's
Savannah.
another great question. We have had a foreign trade zone on the Georgia ports and another area or two for years, and it's been underutilized. All of a sudden, there's a great interest in using that, and we've just expanded. The way it works, it just helps people avoid duties that they pay on goods, and now what they can do is, until a project, if they're bringing components in to build something, they don't have to pay those duties, in some cases, until the product is sold and manufactured. So we are working with people right now. We're expanding our trade zones, and I think you'll continue to see that. It doesn't completely avoid the tariff or the taxes that they might, but it delays them.
How you doing? Desmond Haygood with Synovus Government Group. You gave a great presentation about the ports and everything that's going on, but as a leader, can you give some insight of what continues to motivate you to kind of see these visions through and kind of how you keep going and what you're doing?
Yeah, no, thank you. First of all, if in this, I think in all of your industries, somehow we end up where we end up, and we love what we do. And I love international trade. I don't know how I got here, but I'm here, and just had dinner with a customer last night in Atlanta, and we are very, like I said, this goes to many industries, but I can just speak for mine. Very passionate about what they do. I love the idea of problem solving. We've got some challenges. How do we fix it? And to get to spend $4 billion, I mean, it's fun. I mean, you just got to spend it the right way. And, we have a report card. We are a P&L. We've got to make money. This is something that I think fires us all up. We're here and we do that. And what's really neat about our industry is we're picking up the phone on any given day and we're calling people in Singapore. We're talking to people in Europe. And to think about that is fascinating to me because the world really is flat. I mean, right now, let's say, and hopefully we can continue that. And the network across the world in our business is exciting. We have great friends all throughout the world, and that's fun stuff. So thank you. We're passionate. We love what we do.
Jackson with Americal. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, for sure. Good customer of ours. Thank you for your business.
We appreciate your partnership. Two-part question, kind of specific to cold storage and reefer. I wasn't able to attend the State of the Port, unfortunately, but are there any plans for reefer, being able to take reefer containers at the Blue Ridge Connector? And anything that you see at a high level on the reefer transport cargo side, any trends that you're able to share?
Yeah, that is one question I didn't think I would get today, but
kind of our bread and butter.
So no, absolutely. So the inland port, in Gainesville is actually, some call it the chicken capital of the world, right? So one of the reasons we built this is because we think we can move poultry in containers on rail and that's not really being done in a big way today. And it's a massive export product coming out of that region. So my answer is we hope so. We're trying to find a way to do it. The challenge with refrigerated cargo is you got to keep it powered up. So you're freezing or chilling that cargo. And there are gen sets that can be put on those, but it gets challenging with rail. And the rail service has to be regular. It has to be 24 hours from one stop to the next. And that's a little bit dicey at times. So the answer is yes. What was the other question? Yeah, so the big trend that we see, what's happening in the industry, so the Georgia ports has always been strong on the export side with blast frozen chicken, right? We mentioned poultry camps. So that's been driving our business. But the trend that is now developing is that you think about Vidalia onions, when they're off season, a lot of those folks that grow those onions now have land in South America, in Peru. So they similar type quality, similar temperate climate, and also soil. And so they grow the same similar sweet onions in South America. So they're bringing those to the ports off season. And the same is true with other types of produce. So the big trend we see is Philadelphia has typically been the home for produce coming into the East Coast. Georgia Ports wants to replace Philadelphia. So that's kind of on our target zone. And so we need infrastructure, warehousing, chilled areas, and things like that. So that's something you'll see in the coming years. All right, good. If I'm on, can we delete that from the video? Right? Okay.
Hi, David Mayo at Security Capital. I just have a question. I do not envy your forecasting department.
Yeah.
Now, I can imagine with a $750 billion trade imbalance, and if they're trying to equalize that by bringing onshore manufacturing. My question is, and I am a layman when it comes to your industry, the inland ports, sort of a 30,000-foot view of what they really are doing, and also from the perspective of an equalization of trade imbalance, if they bring onshore manufacturing, can you replace potentially some of the incoming sea traffic with point-to-point inland traffic within the United States?
All right, so first on the inland port side of it, basically what we're trying to do here is pick up the gates that are in Savannah and move them to the location that we're servicing. So in Gainesville, we want to provide direct service to these growing regions. And what that means is it's one-stop shopping. That's number one. Number two, in the trucking industry, the long-haul trucking, I think Mitch would agree, is more challenging just from a standpoint of workforce. And so we want to make sure our customers have the ability and optionality to move cargo in different ways to those locations. You're always, even in the inland port scenario, you're still going to have trucking because you got to truck it to the rail it, and then when it gets to the location it's going to, a short haul truck from that rail yard to the customer. That's number one. I'll just say on the domestic, the onshoring, we have tried to build a yard crane in the U.S. years ago. Those cranes that you saw on the Mason Mega Rail, we had a federal grant. And part of the federal grant was it required American-made products. And there were 10 cranes. And we finished 4 of them. And the 2 of the companies we were working with said, we can't do this anymore. It's gonna bankrupt us. So they bailed out on us. They didn't have the skill set. They didn't have the facilities. I think the things we're talking about now are generational. It is not going to happen overnight. I think we all know we don't have the people to do it either. So not to say it won't happen in the future. I don't see that happening now. When it does happen, my hope would be in the next generation when we're producing all these great goods that we become more of an export port. Going back, if you go back, to the beginning, Savannah was an export port. We were 80% exports, 20% imports. Today, we're 70% imports and 30% exports. So this number, I think, is dynamic and it will move based on what's happening in the world. The ports are always going to be needed. That's my feeling. I hope they're going to be needed because I need a job.
Thanks for the presentation and everything you're doing for the state. You guys sit in the middle of an incredibly vibrant and important ecosystem environmentally. Can you just talk a little bit about your relationship with sort of the environment around the area?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as we said, everything we do, all the money we're spending, the projects we spent, we have the environment in mind and sustainability. Obviously, we know we have an impact. Okay, and there's no way to say we don't have an impact. What we're trying to do is mitigate those impacts through our actions. And I think the Clean Ports Grant is a big one. I think converting all of our equipment from diesel to electric or hybrid is also a big thing. And that's our focus. That's our goal. But I will tell you, we're measuring air pollution, not just ours, but in our near port communities, we're working with those folks. We're doing all the things we think we should be doing, and we're open to advice as to how to move forward. And we're looking at new technologies. What are the other things that we can be doing to make it better? And it's important that we do that. Yes, sir. Oh, great. Yeah. So I can't believe I didn't mention that, Keith, and especially with you in the room. Don't tell my board, okay? No. The one thing is I mentioned the Roro port being the largest in the country, right? It's amazing that here we are in Savannah and Brunswick, two small communities, and we have two major facilities. The Roro port and the container port is actually the largest container terminal in the Western Hemisphere, next to one of the oldest cities. It's just this amazing thing to see. Having that large facility and all the customers calling one place is really important in our growth. It allows us to provide the best service. Mitch mentioned it, but it's true. In many ports, if you look at LA Long Beach, New York, they have 10. LA Long Beach probably has about 15, 16 terminals. New York probably has 12 or 13. Our customers have to move cargo between those ports, and it gets very complex. It creates a lot of traffic. So this is another thing when you think about it environmentally. How can we reduce the amount of truck traffic or other impacts to the community? This is a way by having one port where everything's going in and out of. We're just blessed with that geography, and it's a natural hit. Now, as we mature and grow, we're going to have to create more facilities, as you saw in the diagram. We got to figure out a way to measure, balance that. But yeah, the largest Roro and the largest container. We're not the largest port, but the largest single terminal. Yes, sir.
Can you comment on the Hyundai plant, how the port obviously works?
Sure. Hyundai's just built a massive facility in Savannah. These will be mostly EVs and hybrid, I believe, and multiple models, and Hyundai across all their brands, both Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis. And so 3 years ago, they embarked on building this facility, and so they tell us one of the reasons they cited that plant there was because it was in close proximity to the port. So those components that they're importing to build those cars are near port, and their inland transportation is more easier to do and lower cost. And that's a big part of their operation. And we're happy to have them. I think they're going to have some growing pains. It's a big place, and they're going to learn and do a better job. But it's great to see them also creating the workforce. I was driving up here the other day, early in the morning, and I hadn't been past the Hyundai facility at that time of day, and it was amazing to see thousands of cars heading to. This is all new jobs for Georgia, and a great thing to see. We just want to make sure they do it responsibly. But we're seeing that. My chief commercial officer yesterday was up in Atlanta not Atlanta, but close by, meeting with Rivian. So we're seeing a lot of growth in this area. And I know Governor Kemp has made it clear that he wants to be, the headquarters and the home for EV production. So this is a great thing.
The warehousing and the trucks over there, and I mean, it just went forever. And I know it's gotta be related to the ports, and I know there wouldn't be a Costco in Pooler if there weren't all the people and the housing. But how do you guys connect to that and promote that and plan for it, I guess?
Well, this is where we want to find that balance. But so with our customers, the big box retailers, the Walmarts, the Home Depots, the Lowe's, and many, there's thousands of brands that come to the port. they're looking for not just a port, but a distribution model. And part of that model is they want to have these warehouses where their goods come to, and then they go to the stores from there. So yeah, so I was saying to somebody at the beginning of during the opening session that when I arrived in 2011, there was approximately 30 million square feet of warehouse in Savannah. Today, there's over 150 million square feet. So, that's a good and bad thing. We don't necessarily want all of those folks to settle right in Savannah. We want to be the gateway for them to go where they're going. But it just happens to be that there's a great workforce in Savannah. We need more people. But what people find generally in the Southeast is it works a heck of a lot better here than it does on the West Coast or the Northeast. And that's why they're moving. And so, yes, we are connected to those. And when I mentioned GDOT before, not enough time to go through it, building the roads and expanding the road capability so we don't have any queuing and traffic backups is important. That's something that we're focused on with them. We understand it's not just about what's on terminal. But yeah, the warehousing is definitely connected to the port, for sure. For sure.
About the difference between going around the Cape of Africa and going through the Suez Canal. Any way to provide guarantees to the shipping partners to get them more comfortable with going through the canal with what's going on in the area?
It's an interesting thing. The truth is that by going around, the ocean carriers are charging more money, so they actually make more money that way. And it takes a little bit longer, but our customers build it into their supply chain. There's no way for us to provide comfort for them until it's resolved and their ships stop getting, drone bombings or whatever it might be. It's a major issue. And so it's working right now. And the other thing about that is there's a lot of ships coming out of shipyards. They're building these vessels. By taking longer to deliver the goods, you're using more ship capacity. So their assets are being utilized by going around Africa, if you understand what I'm saying. When it does go back through the Suez, and it will eventually, that means they're going to have open capacity for ships they have nothing to do with, right? So it's a real challenging situation. And so one might ask, do the carriers really want to go back to the Suez? And they tell us they do, but we'll find out over time.
Thank you very much for your time today. On the personnel piece, both between Hyundai and tertiary, secondary suppliers that are in there, plus your growth, plus all these things, there's not enough housing.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Guys other partners like GDOT to try to address this?
Absolutely, yeah. We're working with the Joint Development Authority, with CETA and the various economic development authorities. I cannot remember the name of the group, but they are attacking this and working with Georgia Department of Economic Development and Governor Kemp to look for ways. Housing is coming. It's happening, but maybe not fast enough right now. But if you're going around Savannah and some of those communities, you see it. It's being built, but we're not where we need to be. And we need to attract more people for sure with the growth we've had. This is a problem. Every port community that I visit and go to, and everywhere I go, it's an issue. I think Savannah, we're right in there with with that kind of growth. It's a challenge. So we are working for it. I can't tell you we have the ultimate solution, but over time, it's a great place to live, and I'm banking on that. People will continue to move here. Well, I think you've been waiting, so I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. So given the litigious nature of society today, Georgia's a judicial hellhole, and we're seeing a lot of nuclear verdicts and judicial system abuse around transportation and logistics companies. So I'm curious, how does this directly affect the port operations, and kind of what do you hear from these trucking companies in terms of the environment in which they're operating today?
That one's a tough one for me. I'm not a legal guy. I'm just an operator. So I don't really have an answer for that. I know that that's a challenge. I know that that's going through the General Assembly now. And so, my hope is that everyone gets back to just doing business. That's what we're here for. We want to continue to expand and do the right thing. So I'll leave it there. I don't really have an answer for you on that one.
Talk about the Panama Canal.
Sure. We're going to visit the Panama Canal next week. Great partner of ours. We are the largest. When you think about the East Coast and Gulf, we're the largest trade partner for the canal. It has been the thing that has built Savannah. It is the reason why we are what we are. 100 years ago, when the Panama Canal was built, or even more than 100, I think 1914, 1916 timeframe, an author wrote in a book, and he was a Savannaian, who said, when this canal opens, it's going to open the gates to Savannah. And ocean freight rates are going to be reduced by 30%. He said that in his book 100 years ago. And then in 2016, most of you may know, the Panama Canal was expanded. And then you read articles, it's like, this is going to open the gates of Savannah, and it's going to reduce ocean freight rates to Savannah by 30%. So it's just amazing. History repeats itself. But Savannah is the fastest way from the Northeast Asia to the East Coast, Panama Canal. And so it is critical to our success, as is the Suez Canal. It used to be Panama Canal was probably 70% of our traffic when you think of the canals. Right now, I'd probably place it at 50-50 when the Suez is opened. I think with India happening, they might lose a little bit of that share, but both are critically important, and why we're visiting with them next week. So, yeah, that's a really crazy story. Probably enough time to go through it, but I could, but it's not enough time. So. Could you just repeat? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
The pre-COVID, the capsizing in St. Simon's Island Sound, did that create demand for pivot to sustain operations and performance out of Brunswick?
Well, you're talking about the Golden Ray, and that is a tough story. 2 or 3 in the morning, I got a phone call and said, "Griff, we got a problem." I said, "What is it?" A ship is gone aground, and it's on fire. All these. I said, "What are you talking about? This can't be happening." And we drove down. I met my chairman down on St. Simon's on the fishing pier, and I saw that site. It was really crazy. And it didn't take long. I think an hour later, there were artists out there painting the scene. It was amazing. But I don't think it changed. What it did is it may change some of the rules around the vessel side. What happened ultimately was that the ship sailed without the proper stability. And that's not something the port is involved in. That's up to the ship master and his team to make sure they have it. And they didn't. And when the vessel turned in the channel, it just kept going because it didn't have the righting capability, didn't have the right center of gravity. So what I think it will change is the rules and regs around stability and how it's followed. And so it didn't change. Now we're very fortunate that the pilot who was guiding the vessel at that time, when it started going down, he took it out of the channel. Had he not done that, we would have had a major issue. We would have had to shut the port down for a long time. So.
Hey, good morning. I'm Timothy Vines. You did a great job presenting this morning. Very great presentation. Just wondering, I've seen articles about the possibility of the Jones Act being repealed. Just wondering if you could speak to possibilities of the Georgia Port Authority if it is successfully appealed.
Yeah, so for the Jones Act, that's something that is if you're shipping cargo domestically on the waters from one port to the next, you have to have a bottom-built ship that is made in the U.S., a vessel, and there really are no vessels made in the U.S. So this is an issue, right? So I think they've been talking about repealing the Jones Act for a long, long time, and it hadn't happened yet. I do see them, introducing some new regulations that would allow for different movements of cargo, but there's nothing right now that says, yeah, it's going to get repealed that I've seen. So, okay. Listen, folks, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being with you today, and I hope this answered your questions, and I hope I didn't avoid too many. The litigious one, that scared me. But anyway, thank you much.
So, Griff, thank you so much for being with us today and the tremendous impact that you're having and the Georgia Ports Authority has on the state of Georgia economic development. Every time we go across the state with our economic outlook, what you're doing for Georgia Ports is always an important part of that. We have a nice red and black memorabilia for you. So next time you're naming a project,
yes,
maybe we're
going to put that right out there on the table.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thanks.